morning, children. Today we are going to discuss the next heading, the February Revolution in Petrograd. Children, this is the month of your Feb, that is the winter time. And in the year of 1917, conditions in the capital, that is your Petrograd, was quite very serious. And the food shortage was deeply felt in the workers' quarter. When the workers were facing the food crisis at this tough time, on 22nd of February, a lockout took place at a factory in the city. The very next day, the workers from the 50 factories, they also went on a strike in sympathy. In many of the factories, workers, they led the way to a strike. In many of the factories, women also led the way to a strike. And the women, when they led to a strike, then this came to be known as the International Women's Day. Now later on the 25th of February, the government had suspended the Duma, that is the parliament of your Russia. And when the parliament or the Duma was suspended, then the politicians, they all become very angry and they opposed the action of the Tsar Nicholas II, that is the Tsar Nicholas II, king of your Russia. Now the demonstrators, they all came on the streets. They came on the streets on 26th of the February. Later on, when the government called the cavalry to control the situation, then cavalry refused to fire on the demonstrators. Soldiers and the striking workers, they all gathered to form a Soviet or a council. Later on, now a delegation went to see the Tsar. And this delegation or the military commanders, they advised the Tsar to abdicate from the throne. And all such conditions turned people against the Tsar, and ultimately Tsar had to leave the throne in the year of 1917. And after this, a provisional government was formed and a constituent assembly was elected by the Universal Adult Franchise. And monarchy was finally brought down in the year of 1917, when the February Revolution took place in your Russia. After the February Revolution, what changes occurred? That is the effects of your February Revolution. So after the next heading which we have, this is the after February. Now children, as after the February, a provisional government under the Krinsky, that is the Prime Minister Krinsky, under the Prime Minister Krinsky, the provisional government came into power. And it was basically dominated by your army officials, landowners and the industrialists. At the same time, those who were the liberals or the socialists, they wanted that they should have an elected government, but continuously they were being ignored by the provisional government. But what changes occurred? That the restrictions on the public meetings and the associations were removed. And the Soviet, like the Petrograd Soviet, they were set up in the different parts of the different parts of the country. Now at this time, in the month of your April 1917, the Bolshevik leader, that is Vladimir Lenin, he returned back to your Russia after his exile. And the Lenin, when he returned back to Russia, after this only he felt that the time has come in Russia that the Soviets should take over the power. Now the Lenin, he opposed the war and demanded that war should be brought to close. He said that the land to be transferred to the peasants. Along with that, he also wanted that the banks should be nationalized. And all these three demands were popularly known as the Lenin's April Thesis. Lenin also argued to rename the Bolshevik Party as a Communist Party to indicate its new radical aims. Now when the Lenin had put his April Thesis, at this time within the Bolsheviks, there were the leaders who were keeping a different opinion on the issue of the revolution. but the workers' movement began. Various workers' committees were set up. The trade unions grew. The army also had set up its own committees in the country. Now, seeing the power and the influence of the Bolsheviks, now your provisional government was quite very much worried. And provisional government, now it has taken a stern steps to curb the Bolsheviks. Now the as a result, many of the Bolshevik leaders, they had to go into hiding or they had to flee. Now in the rural areas also, the peasants, they were influenced by the socialist revolutionaries. They have seized the land. So this way, now the when the February Revolution took place, after that the changes occurred in the politics of your Russia. Now the next heading which we have, this is your the Revolution of October 1917. So how the revolution of 1917 began in the month of October. Children, as I said, the Bolsheviks were continuously gaining the popularity, and because of that only your provisional government was very much worried, and an intense conflict between the provisional government and the Bolsheviks that grew. Now the Bolsheviks, as they were fearing that very soon the provisional government may behave like a dictator one, and because of that only Lenin had thought for an uprising, and as a result a secret plan of action was devised for seizing the power there, and a military revolutionary committee was appointed by the Soviet and under the Leon Trotsky to organize the seizure, and the date for the event was kept entirely secret. Now ultimately the uprising began on 24th of October 1917, and with both the sides trying to consolidate the power. Prime Minister Krinsky, he had left the city to summon the troops. At the same time, now the government had seized the buildings of the two Bolshevik newspapers. The pro-government troops, they were sent to take over telephone and the telegraph offices and protect the Winter Palace. Now, in a response, the Military Revolutionary Committee also ordered its supporters to seize government offices and arrest the ministers. Ultimately, this your ship Aurora, it has also played a very important role and shelled the and Aurora ship has shelled the bombs on the Winter Palace there. Ultimately, now this is your all Russian Congress of the Soviet in the Petrograd had approved the Bolsheviks action, and ultimately now there was a heavy fighting, especially in the Moscow, but by the December the Bolsheviks, they had got the control over the Moscow Petrograd area. So this way, now the February Revolution has brought the end of your monarchy, that is the Tsar Nicholas II, and after this October Revolution, your provisional government was power was over, and then the command of the country, the control of the country had come in the hands of your Bolsheviks. Thank you, children.